What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So this is part 24 of the beef ravioli run as far as this fair is going to happen. So within these particular pitches, just wrapping up the rest of this boss fight here as far as these ordeals going to happen. Now this is kind of more running in place. This is a particular fair about this boss. It's just a little bit persnickety within the aspects as far as these tones going to happen. I mean, within the aspect, it's actually not that terrible final boss within these tones, but I would probably suspect in the next episode after this one, part 25, would be pretty much at least defeating this particular boss as far as these ordeals going to happen. But there is a reset that kind of happens later on because this boss did start to win within those ordeals. It's kind of the concept that the thing about some of these type 1s within these type games when they do it is kind of the fair that to make the boss kind of tougher within those aspects, they'll kind of have where they attack sooner than like the typical kind of order as far as those pitches going to happen. I realize it's just to kind of keep things kind of within a spicy type pitch within the aspect. It's just as it not being as formulaic, but it's just kind of the pitch when that particular kind of happens. It's just kind of the ordeal as far as saying that it doesn't give you a lot to kind of prepare for within those aspects. So it's just kind of the tone. The reality of it was even though I did not do that many battlefields within the standard run of this playthrough between 2018 and now, the pitch behind it is, I just don't know how, I mean, it really makes me question how many grind type fights you would have to, if you'd have to go back to not just the battlefields, but like the dungeons as well, as far as those pitch kind of having to get zone up to like the appropriate stage, because for the most part, this final boss, maybe if he doesn't one-shot you, he can still take you out in like 2 turns, depending upon some of these type of aspects. It's just kind of strange within those ordeals to think if the highest level you can go to is 99, that the aspect that you can actually tackle these final fights at stage 31 within some of these type of pitches, just kind of the ordeal, considering that the final, and it's really not within that badness of a factor either, considering that your final party member, Phoebe, is only at level 34 when you tackle this final fight. So it's just kind of the ordeal. It doesn't really assume that there's going to be that particular product, but you know, this is a classic game within these pitches as far as these pairs are going to happen, so just kind of some good stuff to zone out here with. Kind of some good stuff to zone out to within these ordeals. This one, the pitch, it is kind of the particular fair. This is kind of a trippy type area within these aspects, so plenty of good smoke product to have here within those particular fairs. Just being able to say some extra type stuff, just to say within the relative full boundness. Now I realize this is not like Acid Root's game is not so much more of like a full bound kind of healthier type channel, but it's just within the pitch as far as saying just the product. Just supposing like the good aspect within the tone of this. You know, more or less just easily having some donuts and Lay's chips nearby within those facets, and having like, you know, just if it is like a good bottle of Crown Royal, something like that within those tones of the pitch, was just kind of the fair. I mean, yeah, the ordeal behind this, just some of these type fairs, just obviously within the sense by this particular stage should seem like a game that you would play into like the hours, even back in like the early 90s when this came out. This just feels like one of those games that you would play when like the only things that's really awake at this time for the most part within the pitches, minus the graveyard shift type stuff, is just the pitch of talking about like the chiggers outside and the crickets and some of those type of ordeals in the pitch. It's kind of the fair of that particular aspect, but within those days back in the internet free type times, now obviously, you know, with the pitch and having the bars and places like that, the karaoke bars, pitches like that, but it's kind of the ordeal as far as just saying this is definitely a great midnight snack type material within those aspects. It's kind of the tone, but this is the pretty like the thing that I thoroughly enjoyed about this game is just the pitch as far as saying within the product that it just kind of had an excellent aesthetic within the theme as to how it approached for like the whereabouts to how you would play this. Like when you think of like Contra 3, the Alien Wars, that's not really necessarily as much like a game, and I'd probably say the same thing about Super Castlevania. Those are just kind of more, even though they're kind of more gothic or just kind of more tough, hard as nails type games within the pitch, it's just kind of fair that those are kind of more Saturday afternoon, Friday afternoon type games. Contra 2, Turtles in Time, some of these types of ones, Street Fighter 2, some of these type of aspects, just kind of more afternoon bleeds within those aspects for those tones can have. But this is definitely just the product of just like lounge type music, just in the after hours, I'd say, within the pitch. That's kind of what captivated me within the tones to want to do Arcana within those pitches, just the same similar type format. Just, I mean, these type games are just the tediousness behind them. I've said this how many times, just the aspect, the tediousness behind these games, just the ordeal as far as saying that they're just obnoxious to like the tone. It's just as far as saying that it's very similar to certain PlayStation games around that time where it just, the frustration about it just it's just kind of the way that these games expect you to kind of have that particular type of patience. And it's kind of, I mean, when you think of 80s kind of Nintendo games, pitches like that as well, I'd say Ninja Gaiden's one of those such games where you just play those particular ones. Ninja Gaiden and Contra and Bionic Commando, some of those type ones within pitch, as far as talking about those just impossible type ones. Metal Gear is another one like that, where these are just tough as nails type games, unless within the particular that you know the caveat kind of about them. And that's the key towards it. Most of these are just kind of impossibly bound. It's the same thing with Battletoads, some of those type ones, until you figure out like the trick and the nuance kind of about them. And I mean, to that end, these are fun type games, but I just question if there's supposed to be, like, if that's the way the developers wanted it to be, is for you to either fight them a substandard kind of way and just go at it the difficult way, or if they just want you to find the neat trick to kind of be able to beat them within those pitches and just kind of sing through it. Because when you look at speed run type games, pitches like that, when they play some of those on YouTube, they one-shot a lot of these type things on, like, just Ninja Gaiden and some of those type ones with the pitch behind it, you know, Punch Out, some of those type ones. It's kind of the pitch, but kind of losing track of why I got into this conversation within those pitches as far as that kind of happens. I guess that's this typical kind of stoner lore as far as those pitches kind of go. But it's this kind of aspect as far as saying, I just look after here. There's some reason why I was particularly talking about it, but just kind of within the aspect as far as saying when you pay attention to like the tone of just getting towards like certain games within the aspect as far as saying it's kind of the more tough as nails type ones within the pitch. Is kind of the fair that a lot of these is kind of had the blistering aspect. I really feel like Ninja Gaiden should have been a 2-player game, just to kind of be random and sporadic within those tones. I feel like Ninja Gaiden probably should have been like a 2-player game, pitches like that within those ordeals. I mean, I just think that game is so blisteringly tough. Now I realize within the aspect, I think within the tone, if they had made player 2 like that character, that ninja character that you play as in that particular game, if you had a player 2 who could have at least attacked some of those type of enemies, I mean, I would say within the fashion, it just would be the concept of keeping up. I don't think you'd be able to leave your character, your player 2 behind, but just kind of, I mean, I think there probably would have been some degree of that if they could have done it like certain other Super Nintendo games like Final Fight or some of those type ones. There's just means to kind of get around that, but yeah, those Ninja Gaiden games are just them. Unless you have like the most kind of hardcore gaming type aspect within the tone, it's really, those are just ballistic type games. But
that should be able to.
yes, another product of what I was saying is just completing like this aesthetic to like this particular game. Because I feel like this void that's been particularly activated here once this game that I've been playing for the past 7 years has kind of been. It's kind of within the product as far as saying just these after hours kind of dredge type moments in the aspect, just something to kind of fuck with within these tones behind it. It's just kind of the ordeal as far as saying that this game just really expects you to kind of have that sort of patience, despite the fact that it just kind of has like a very droning type aspect within the tones. This kind of the only thing I can think of that brings any sort of vibe within similarity to it is just kind of like Arcana, something like that. There's probably more of these. I think, like, you know, just talking about, not to is to say Dungeons and Dragons type games and those type pitches within those type formats. And obviously throwing in some games like NBA Jam and some of those type ones, you know, this other type of products, not to have it be completely kind of basement kind of just Lord of the Rings type troll pitches like that. Not to say like that, but just the anti-socialness about it, but just the pitches for us. And some of those type ones, I actually think Lord of the Rings is a game. Maybe some of these type ones would be pretty decent to play within these aspects, but it's just kind of the tone, as far as just being able to more or less say some of these type ones within the pitch. But I just look up to here, it's just kind of variety of keeping things kind of relatively casual, but just having the aspects, some of that stoner lore within the aspects, so just further type tones within pitch. But yeah, some excellent type products. We're going to get some more of these. Stay tuned for some of these type pairs within pitches like that, I'd say.